Hey DZone, we're here day 2 at All Things Open in Raleigh, and I'm here with Peter Zaitsev, the CEO of Percona, which stands for Performance Consulting. Is that right?
Yeah.
So can you just tell us a little bit about where you come from and how you ended up making Percona?
Yes, well, wonderful. So, my name is Peter Zaitsev. I was one of the pretty early MySQL users. We use it since 1999, and that was some MySQL 3.23, some early alpha release, right? And I was young and stupid at the time enough to run that alpha in production, which yeah, well, which actually was good for my career because I ran into so many bugs, and I was writing a ton of emails to Michael Videnius or Monty, and he was really very quick responding to those emails, giving me some bug fixes, right? And I would just run the new version and find some more bugs, right? So on and so forth. So later on, when the time came, I wanted to come and work for MySQL, I came to Monty and he offered me a job. So I spent about 4.5 years in the original MySQL IB, before Oracle, even before Sun, so in kind of real original MySQL, and I worked with a lot of complex customer cases. I did some consulting, I did a lot of support, I ran what was called high performance group, really working on performance problems. I even wrote a whole bunch of questions for original MySQL 4.0 certification, right? So at that time the company was small and you could really do a lot of different things, right? Then at a later point in time, I think MySQL was getting more corporate and kind of getting kind of preparing more to the IPO, right, if you would like, and I got an ideas what we can do to really be doing the business better and be kind of more focused on the customers, and that is how we went ahead and with my co-founder Vadim, we started Percona as mainly a consulting company at first.
Okay, right. So in other words, you really wanted to maintain the focus on the customer while the project MySQL itself became its own big independent.
Well, that's right. I mean, because if you look at any kind of company out there, as a company grows, right, and it really pursues aggressive growth, the consulting goes on the back burner. It becomes deprioritized. It's being pushed to partners, right, and so on and so forth, right? I mean, that is how it goes with pretty much any software company pursuing aggressive growth, right? You can look at the big Oracle, for example. They don't really do a lot of consulting themselves, right? Because that is relatively low margin activity, which is hard to scale, and they would much rather somebody else doing those things.
Right, and you have to keep doing it again and again for the customer, whereas...
Well, yes, I mean, it's right? You have to always be finding your new consulting gigs, right, and so on. It's tough business.
But one thing that you've done, I guess, is you've taken some of the lessons, many of the lessons that you learned in this consulting position, and come up with your own distributions, your own form.
Well, yes, and our focus has been always very much on focusing customer problems, right? We haven't created Percona server to say, well, you know, we want to take VC money, and VCs want some IP. So if you're just doing consulting, then we're not going to get any VC money. So you have to come up with something to sell to them, like VCs, right? So our focus was very simple, right? How we can solve customer problems, and certain of them can be solved through consulting. You go ahead, you optimize query, tune the indexes, right? You buy better hardware, and that's it. But some of the problems, they are really ingrained in the limitations of MySQL, especially
InnoDB,
yes, at that time, right? So what we started to do first is we started to fix problems in InnoDB and created a storage engine called XtraDB, right? Frankly, we didn't even wanted to release our own name, right? We can say, hey guys, you know, can we just call it InnoDB from Percona, right, or something? But because of the trademark law, and because InnoDB was owned by Oracle at that time, they told us they would much rather see us to come up with some different name, and so that's how XRDB was born, right?
An X, right? Not
Yes, yes, with an X.
Yeah.
So.
And so that's an optimization that's for.
Yes, yes, that was very much focused on the optimization, compatibility, so but better performance, right? Because what we found is what users really care about their data, right? Database is a very critical, and people are very careful experimenting with new stuff, right? So yes, they want some better performance, but they don't want to risk their risk their data. So when you created with Percona the XRDB, that was drop-in replacement, 100% compatible on the data store level within a DB, but featuring some optimizations.
And the optimizations include more tunability, right?
Well, yes, the more tunability, that was one of the things. More transparency, that's another, right? Because if you look at a lot of applications, the problem is not really what technology cannot offer, what you need, but what developers and DBAs lack understanding what the hell is really going on. And by providing them more information about that, we could really help them to take better decisions and to get performance to the levels they couldn't get before.
So what additional information does XRDB provide?
Well, I mean, it changed through years, right? And frankly, a lot of the changes what we have first done in XRDB was validated by MySQL team at Oracle later on by integrating them in the main line, right? We have did a lot more status counters. We have provided the information, for example, of how much I/O different queries are doing, right? Or how much time they spend waiting the row level logs and this kind of stuff, right? We have also very first came up with a feature called buffer pool preload, right? So that means if you can get your server being buffer pool being hot, right, and get it to the peak performance very quickly after you restart, instead of waiting, half an hour maybe, while it's kind of slowly warm ups and having your user suffer during that time. So this is just some of examples. Right, and what happened later is we understood for some optimizations we cannot really just do it on the storage engine levels. And frankly, having a storage engine plugin to use in MySQL Server was really hard for users to use. So instead, we have created Percona Server, which is a complete distribution which people can use instead of MySQL. Which has both XRDB as well as other optimization that came up for years.
Cool. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. And you're saying again, so a lot of the innovations that you guys introduced have made it back to MySQL.
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
So some of these are probably familiar to people who are using MySQL right now, but you guys are also moving in new directions now, right? So because you're still primarily a consulting company, you're still thinking, what do the customers absolutely need right now as opposed to 10 years ago or 15 years ago? Or?
Well, no, actually, this is where things have changed for us. We have started as a consulting company as well, right? But you can see what that is a challenging business, and it has a lot of ebbs and flows, right? And as we have created the Percona software, we have seen what a lot of our customers really want us to invest a lot of resources in the consulting, not in consulting, in our products, right? But this is very hard to fund running consulting business. So over the last few years, we have been transitioning to having the largest portion of our business being support and essentially managed services, right? So something which is subscription based, and which I believe is a great both for us getting stable revenue, right, and being able to invest much more of that into open source software, as well for the customer, because instead of just being called then things are kind of really bad, right, and frankly our customers, application users are already suffering, we can really work every day, right, or on the regular basis with customers to make sure what they really always operate well, right, and being proactive in addition just to being reactive, resolving the problem.
So instead of you guys like swooping in, you were talking about this as like DBA as a service.
Well, yeah, so that's right. If you look at we have a consulting service still, right, and you can hire Percona to come for a weekend to do, let's say, whiteboarding of your architecture with you, or do performance audit of your system, right, to help you to assess wherever this is application you can move from, let's say, Oracle, right, to Microsoft SQL Server to MySQL. We can do all of that, but a lot of our businesses also either support, right, that's when you say, hey, I'm having my development and ops teams, and I really want to give them a little bit kind of more tools to work, somebody to ask the questions and get really quality response time, responses quickly, or if I run into bugs in software, I want somebody to actually fix those bugs for me, right? So we do all of that for support. And now what we have introduced the next level of a service for that, which is called Percona Care. When this applies is if you don't really only want support, but you want more proactive work where somebody is going to actually be working with your team on the regular basics. And that can be in both ways. We are even working with you in the strategic role. Let's say you have your own ops team which takes care of your database systems, and we just work with developer and try in a kind of more kind of regular consultative basics, or we can take the complete care of your databases, essentially doing something like as a similar to DBA as a service, as you call it, right, or database as a service when we manage database for you completely.
Right. Well, that makes sense. Now, one of the things that's come about recently, you were saying, for you guys, because of your focus on the customers, your response to the customers was, you guys now have something like Percona Server, but instead of for MySQL, for totally different type of storage model for MongoDB, right?
Well, that's right. And this is, I think, is an interesting to look at the story as a whole, right? When Percona was started in 2006, their MySQL was essentially the database of choice for the in the internet for companies starting that time at that time, right?
Yeah, LAMP stack. Yeah.
LAMP stack, right, and so on and so forth, right? And this was, I mean, I don't have an exact number. It is probably like more than 80% of the market for those kind of a new applications popping up, right? And there was no MongoDB at that time. It was kind of before Hadoop, Cassandra, or MongoDB, right? Before all those things, right? That is what we focused on. But at the same time, at Percona, that never was really about a single technology. It was about finding the customers a better way to be successful and build good, secure, high-performance applications, right? So as the world changed, and right now MySQL is a great database, right, and has much more features than it had 10 years ago. But at the same time, there are a lot of other good choices as an open source database which appears through the years. And we at Percona don't want to be a company which kind of follows this idea of, well, you know, if the only thing you have is a hammer, but everything looks like a nail for you, right? So we are looking at our customers and seeing what else are you guys using and where we can really help you and contribute. And the technology we choose first to pursue and expand for is MongoDB.
Right.
Because if you look at that, the MongoDB is technology which follows a lot of similar footsteps to the MySQL did. That is technology which is very easy to use for developers, easy to get up and running, right? And even on the business level, you can see what the MongoDB, a lot of their marketing strategy was to, hey guys, you know, use MySQL, use MongoDB instead of MySQL. So what that happened is what a lot of our customers at Percona, they ended up having not just MySQL but also MongoDB in-house, right? And they have been asking us, hey guys, can you help us with MongoDB as well, right? And that is what we started doing earlier this year. And similar as with a MySQL approach, we are really going very deep, right? We don't want to be the company which can only look at the simple problems and say, well, you know what, that gets too complicated. Go to somebody else, right? Who actually knows the code, right?
Right.
Our Percona approach is what we are to be able to solve the most complicated problems our customers potentially can encourage, right? And that requires the code level experience as well. So in our case, we're not only having the support and consulting services for MongoDB. We have a new product which is called Percona Server for MongoDB, right? This is same as Percona Server. It's very much focused on compatibility and really providing an additional features.
Right.
So we have this unique fractal tree storage engine. We also integrate a storage engine called RocksDB.
Okay.
Which is a storage engine designed by Facebook and used in the application. So
for documents?
Yes, for MongoDB.
Right. Okay.
That's right.
So can you just finally just tell me a little bit about the your guys' relationship to open source, right? You were talking about how you're offering some of the features that eventually make it into, or maybe we're already in the enterprise versions of MySQL, let's say. But you're putting them into Percona Server, and you're really pushing what open source can do, and that's, I guess, partly why you're here. Is that right?
Well, that's right. Right. If you look at that, even though we changed our model from being the consulting company, right, to really focused on a more broad solutions, right now we are still what you can call a pure open source company, right? So then we have a Percona Server for MySQL, a Percona Server for MongoDB. There is only one version for that, right, which is an enterprise quality, right, an enterprise grade, but completely open source. That is different than the models of kind of so-called open source in MySQL and MongoDB. There is a community edition, right, but it's kind of sort of incomplete, crippled version, right? And when you talk business to those guys, what they really want to sell you is an enterprise release, which has some better features, right? And I think that defeats a lot of really the reason why a lot of people like open source, because people choose open source for a reason of choice, so they can actually shop around and talk and work with multiple vendors out there, right? And they don't want vendor lock-in. But frankly, if you go ahead and you use enterprise MySQL or enterprise MongoDB, you're not really any better than using the proprietary version of Oracle, right, or Microsoft SQL Server.
Start with the vendor.
Well, yes, because that is what it is, right? It's enterprise version, and it's really what is called kind of based on the open source edition, but it is proprietary, right? Don't make any mistake about that.
Right. So that's interesting. Like you guys coming from this very early MySQL days, being people in the community who are actually developing the product before it became part of Oracle, before it was forked into MariaDB, partly out of this kind of wonder about what Oracle is going to do with it. Mm-hmm. So I guess Percona Server is a case of open source working really nicely, responding to community needs, yes, under a specific umbrella of consulting, but then also becoming its own product and remaining just as open as it was 15, 16 years ago, right?
Yeah.
Anything right now that some new directions in either DBMSs or open source or Percona in particular that you're really excited about?
Well, I'm very excited right now. I think about a couple of things. First, I'm very happy to see what the Percona strategy is being kind of recognized. But if you look at the mainstream business press, right, we have just last week been named by Gartner as a challenger in the Gartner Magic Quadrant, right? And well,
for DBMS, or
yes, for operational DBMS, right? And I think if you look at the open source developers, many of them don't really care about that. But if you look at the larger enterprise, that is actually a big deal, right? Mm-hmm. Because that means for the CTOs, CIOs, right? Then they kind of take decisions to work with a vendor from a Magic Quadrant. That means, well, we're not going to be getting fired for taking a bad decision, right?
Yeah,
Doing some unfruit vendor. So that is what from business side, which is very exciting for us. We're also very glad of our early track record with a MongoDB, right? Obviously, that is something early on which we started this year by acquiring the Tokutech company. We didn't really know what the response is going to be to that, but the response have been really fantastic. We have a lot of people who really appreciate having the alternative in the MongoDB space as there exists in MySQL. And frankly, that's what we are, right? We are not trying to fragment MongoDB space. That is not our focus. We are really focused on making the pie bigger and working with MongoDB community, and of course, having a share, right, of that pie, which matches our contributions.
Right, and you were actually saying before that in the case of Percona Server for MySQL, if you innovated and then Oracle folded that same innovation into their version, you would then, but in it with a different syntax, you would then adopt the Oracle syntax just because you wanted it to drop in first.
Yes, absolutely, right. So what we see is really, I would like to refer to Percona Server as, it's not really the fork, but it's more of a variant, right? We are really making sure what our change is relatively small because, well, it goes without saying, you cannot be same and different at the same time, right? If you would really want to go and implement a lot of different changes like MariaDB is doing, then we'll get more and more difference, right? And that's wouldn't be compatibility. There is room for a lot of different databases, right? And I think it's really cool when somebody innovates this way, but that is just not what we do, and we don't, right? Because as I started that mentioning, what we as Percona, we don't see ourselves as a technology company, but as a solution company. We are focused on providing solutions for our customers, and frankly, a lot of our customers right now, they buy our support, but they use Oracle, Oracle's MySQL, I mean, right, or MariaDB, or even Amazon RDS. It does not have to be Percona Server, right? And we offer Percona Server as an option, but we are not really forcing somebody to move to that, to use that the software in order to work with Percona.
Cool. Yeah. Anything else that was most exciting? I think you mentioned there were 3 things.
Yeah. So I mentioned this. Yes. The other thing would be good to mention is another thing which happened from Percona acquiring Tokutech is what we have acquired with the technology of fractal trees. And this is a very interesting technology which kind of allows you to kind of bridge the gap between 2 very common and popular technologies in the database markets, where B trees and what's called LSM trees, right? Where B trees are essentially optimized for reads very well, but they don't take high amount of inserts very well, and the LSM do that, but they are not as efficient for reads in many cases. And fractal trees can sort of fill the gap between them. This also technology which allows us to get a very good compression compared to some other existing technologies, right? And the fact that we have this technology which can be used both with MySQL and MongoDB is absolutely great, right? Because that allows the operations people to leverage kind of their experience of how things work on the lower level for both applications which use either MySQL or MongoDB as application level protocol, if you like.
Cool. Very exciting. It sounds like really cool stuff you guys are working on.
Yeah, thank you.
Be excited to hear more.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.